This is day 3 of the July 95 7-day retreat in Springwater. Someone said this morning, I would really like to learn how to meditate. Please let me say that in stating what someone said, I do not remember verbatim what was said, so very likely there are any number of words that are different. Not to assume because different words are used or it's put in different ways that one wasn't understood. But there's no eidetic memory here. But the feel of it, the gist of it is remembered, is held by the memory for this talk as it surfaces right now. So I would really like to know how to meditate or learn how to meditate. In sitting down, there seems to be nothing but confusion, so many thoughts, so many feelings and emotions, and then there are the birds, there's an airplane, and there's an itch wanting to scratch. What is meditation in all of that? So many problems to solve. This is not just one person's concern. Someone yesterday said in a group meeting, a problem to be solved, so concerned with a solution. Not even understanding the problem, but wanting to solve it, get rid of it. Know what to do. And this is only day 3. It takes the mind and body quite a while to slow down from our usually overactive, overstimulated daily lives. Overactive, overreactive. So much stimulation there. And then turning on some more. So, to not hassle with the fact that this mind is manifesting its busyness right now on day 3 in a silent, quiet environment with quiet people intermingling quietly. It's an amazing forum for the inner chaos to manifest and be heard, be perceived, noticed, come into awareness. And already the conditioned response is there. What am I going to do with it? How am I going to quiet it down? Which is more activity, more programmatic approaches of what to do, how to do it. With a compulsion behind it. I must, I have to, or else. You see, there's so much to become aware of. As it happens, in the midst of bird song and insect buzzing, without needing to do anything about it. I know we say this time and time again, but it comes up time and time again. What should I do about it? So, can one notice this urge to do something expressed in thoughts, groping for ideas, for formulae, methods. How to deal with this chaos, which is the human mind, the human consciousness. How to make some order out of it. Make some intelligent decision. We spent almost a whole afternoon yesterday looking at how to make a decision in a difficult case. Should the child go on with the next class or be held back? Very sensitive, difficult decision. See, I have no way of describing a method to quiet the mind, to listen deeply, attentively, openly. All that's possible is to do it together. Maybe we're doing it together, as one person expresses it in words. But coming out of that state, that amazing state of open listening, in which the motor sounds, the breathing, a deep one, and birds singing are all discerned. It's not one mush. There's motor sound, birds singing, there's breathing, this hand moving, a cool breeze, crows cawing, sensations in this body that moves, not according to design, it just moves as it will. This feeling where the buttocks touch the chair. That's a very clumsy way of putting it. Where does the chair start and the buttocks end? The knees, hands, the heat, some sweat on the skin. It's all there. It all appears in this open listening of not wanting anything. Not wanting anything to be different. And so a scratch may come up. That happens to all of us. It's one of my first remembered experiences in sitting in a Zen center. No, it wasn't a scratch, it was a cramp in the leg. I'd been worried about this because my legs had a great tendency at that time to cramp in an unusual, unaccustomed to position, posture. What will happen if this leg cramps? What am I going to do? Thinking about this ahead of time. And then, sure enough, the leg cramps. And no permission to move. If you moved I don't know what we call the coordinator then, names changed in the course of time, would shout, "No moving!" So there was no choice but to what? This cramping, hurting leg automatically attracts attention. How could it be different? Attention to the pain. The language is always dualistic. attention of the pain being felt, and that habitual desire to do something about it, to correct it, to rectify it, to get it out of this world, or at least out of this body. The latter two, trying to get rid of it, do something about it, were impossible. All that remained was this thing. And it occurred on its own, with no instructions given, that to label it, to know it, to remember it from the past was just so much extra burden, too much for this thing that was taking place. So it was no choice but to drop knowing it. Just this, what's going on. And amazingly enough, this, what's going on, doesn't remain the same. It changes. It comes to a culmination, and then, whatever the physiological explanation may be, it dissolves. It's gone. No more cramp. Without doing a thing about it, and yet the flowering of attention. Not because I have a practice to be attentive. That could be sort of the way of the brain puts it to itself, and it loves to put things to itself. It feels that it has established some order, some security with that order. Things are in order because I know what to do, and I know how to call it, how to name it, how to categorize it into my experiences and knowledge. It wasn't necessary. Things happen on their own. The knowing what happens and superimposition of knowledge and explanation and ordering it for the mind to understand it, to write books about it, that comes later. It's one step later at least. So in having a conversation with a person who was describing this chaos and asking for a way to sit with it, the person said, well, okay, we were talking about a scratch, an itch. And he said, yes, he understood this itch goes away, but he said, it's annoying. There's annoyance in feeling an itch. So let's look at annoyance. What is it? Not to take anything for granted. This is what I'm stuck with or cursed with, or this is what's natural. But what is it? Annoyance with a scratch, annoyance with maybe someone breathing heavily next to one. Somebody moving, too noisy. What is annoyance? One has to watch it as it happens, and it's not so hard because we get annoyed a lot of the time. Even in a retreat, there is no dearth, no lack of annoyances. At the way people are, or at the way people are not, at the way the work supervisor is, the note one receives, being told something that one knows already, so one thinks, and annoyed, resentful, upset, angry. So what is it? Coming back to a simple thing like an itch. Annoyance is, isn't it? First of all, I don't like this. It's bothering me, it's disturbing me. These thoughts start running. Why shouldn't it happen to me? Going on to being annoyed by someone else. Why should he do this to me? Why doesn't he take care of himself? Always, why me? Why him? I don't like it. And it's not just right now, but it is linked with all the past annoyances of our whole life. Having been imposed upon, not respected, humiliated, not given the space, intruded upon, having to live with things or people that are not sympathetic to us, that we don't like their moods, that affects us. I don't want it, it annoys me. It's this ongoing resistance, rejection, expressed in words and accompanied by strong feelings, strong emotions. We've talked about it since day one, how this body of complex reactions and reflexes accompanies every thought, every memory, every anticipation, with different juices flowing, chemicals spreading, triggering organs, muscles, tissues to tense up or feel pleasure. That's the other side of it. So, is it absolutely inevitable to be annoyed at an itch or whatever someone does who's close to one or is in some kind of relationship with one? Is it okay to ask that question? Because maybe until we begin to ask this question, it is inevitable. Because this organism is like a reflex machine. Has learned to respond in certain ways to certain stimuli. And those responses may be felt as bothersome. We don't like the way the body feels when it's upset. We would like to have an easy stomach, not feel it. A gently beating heart, not feel the pounding. Relaxed muscles, not feel the stress and tension in the neck, in the shoulders, in the arms, legs, back, wherever. Whatever the body manifests, we criticize, we find fault with. Thought does. There's no entity behind it. The language posits that, but it's just a way of speaking. Thought wants it otherwise, wishes it were different. Even though thought itself has produced or evoked the discomfort in the body and now finds fault with it. What a mess to live in. What conflicting stuff which the body keeps on manifesting. The first response, the response to criticism of the response, and then the conflict and its response. So getting some insight into this, which happens. People notice that sometimes the annoyance at the other person who may be doing some loud breathing or whatever, the annoyance at that is noisier than the breathing. The riled up body begins to be more of a discomfort than the sound. And as one person remarked, if that was a strange bird making this kind of noise, there would be no annoyance. That's amazing, isn't it? That according to how the brain categorizes what comes in, so the body reacts. A strange bird, it's all right. A noisy neighbor is not all right. So noticing little things, little trivia, which seem trivia, but eventually we go to war over them. Noticing trivia in their bud, is that meditation? Listening to whatever's there, and if something really attracts attention, like a pain or an annoyance, a state of anger unfolding, listening to it like to the buzzing fly. It's not easy. We're not used to it. We're totally habituated to dealing with the outside, which includes our body seen as something outside of us. The people, how they behave. I don't want them to be. Getting involved in that. Or the emotions. I would like them to be otherwise, or not appear, or having a right to them. Just always involved in what appears to be the objects of perception. I like the birds. I don't like an airplane. I'm not saying that, but for myself. But involved with objects out there, disregarding this here, the source of listening, the source of perception, the source of annoyance, the source of all reactions, of all reflexes, sits right here. What is that? Such an amazing shift to go from constant occupation with the so-called objects of our perceptions to this whole mysterious process of perceiving, of listening, here. And the inability at this point in time, if there is inability at this point of time to listen, has to do with all of the prejudices, all of the judgments, the comparisons. My whole history of remembered experiences operating through imagination, memory, affecting this perception, preventing its clarity. So how do I know that how the other people are, who so annoy me, so bother me, impact me, when I don't know myself? So what am I in all of this chaos? Taking a deep breath, that's what's there, no matter what the state of the body may be, sick or healthy, angry or joyous, there's breathing going on. So we're talking about this morning, is it possible to listen to the breathing in a fresh way? Because it's always there as long as we're alive. Once we're dead, no more breath. No more breathing, we die. So as long as there's a spark of aliveness in this organism, there's breathing going on. It's really a marvelous, marvelous thing to watch, to behold, experience. Probably because it is so marvelous, it has been used for thousands of years by people seeking out quietness and solitude, trying to find out about the innermost meaning of themselves and this universe. Paying attention to the breathing. So you have probably wherever spiritual practice takes place, have usually beginning with breathing exercises. But I'm wondering, and it's up to each one, if people have their breathing exercises, like to do them sometimes at the beginning of a retreat or the beginning of a round of sitting. This is up to each person, what they need to do or want to do, or are habituated to doing. But I'm questioning whether it is at all necessary to make a quote-unquote practice out of the breathing, which is there so naturally. So quintessentially, always there, even if we hold it for a moment, or even if it slows down. Because one finds in listening very deeply, very inwardly, openly, it seems that the breathing diminishes. Sometimes just a touch of it. But it's there. This organism wouldn't survive without it. Neither would there be consciousness without it. So, counting the breathing, that's how I learned it. First counting, exhalation, inhalation, alternately 1, 2, 3. And then progressing to just counting the exhalation. And then progressing to no counting, just attending to the breathing as my practice. That idea was still stuck in the mind. And I wonder whether we need any extra burdens in addition to what we already carry, what we have to do, or whether it's possible to listen to the breathing like the quivering of leaves blown by the wind. Whether it can't be just there naturally, unforced, which it is. It is unforced. So can the listening, ka, be just as unforced? We're so forced. We've been so forced all our life. We don't even know what unforcedness is. Sometimes it hits one as a ton of bricks. A moment of total unforcedness. Everything taking place and happening entirely on its own. Including this deep breath. So one of the practices being visualizing the breathing. Actually, we were told that to visualize it, or that was the our teacher who had recommended that visualize your breath as it comes through the nose and down the tubes into the belly. So then one strains at visualizing this. I didn't even know whether it is how the breath goes. Is it how? Does it go like that? So eventually leaving a too difficult, too cumbersome visualization be. Leave it aside. Let it go. It feels as though this whole entire body is breathing. Maybe it's not just it feels as though this is how it is. Something moving more in one spot than others, but everything in movement with the wind and the airplane and the twittering birds. So still, the listening, so quiet, so discerning. And no need to be self-referential, no need to refer to oneself in word or image as doing this or having to do this. The habit is deep, and it happens so much, maybe most of the time, maybe all of the time, not all of the time. There are moments where there's no self-reference, isn't there, aren't there? Moment of watching a deer graze and move so quietly, yet so limberly, so attentively. Last night, these two deer, maybe people saw them from this window. I saw them from my bedroom window, grazing uphill. And then there was a firecracker going off, and boy, those ears were up and the head was up. Then no more sound and more grazing. And is there a realization that we all participate in this stillness of listening? Even though there's a lot of movement, a lot of upset maybe, or annoyance. The desire to reach a decision, and right now the inability to reach one because the mind is too confused, too upset, too disturbed. I know sometimes when I write something, maybe in a letter to someone, I just don't quite know how to put it. It's not clear. Too much is coming in. I've got to say this and this and this, and then it's also that. It's too complicated, too much. So it's an amazing thing to just sit quietly. Not think about it. It's there someplace in the mind because it wants to complete this thing. So the brain has a way of holding it. But it's all right to sit quietly. Not grasp for a solution. Just an unfolding openness and quiet listening. And then all of a sudden, there it is. It's a simple way of putting it. Yeah, this is how it is. Now you see it. Now you can say it. If there isn't clear seeing, then the words don't come. They come garbled up. And when the mind quiets down, in simple listening, not on target, just open, unfocused, clarifying itself like a muddy pool that is left alone. All the sediments settling out, the water clearing up and reflecting everything clearly. So a decision may come on its own about a difficult problem. Whether third grade or second grade. And maybe one may wonder, why was I so confused about what was so difficult about it? Because we always want the best without any disadvantages. That's impossible. We always want the impossible. The dog barking, it's clear, isn't it? Maybe it wasn't a moment ago, but now he quit. Dog barking and this chirping of insects. It's all so clear, isn't it? And the heart beating and breath coming, going. It's clear where the hands are, where the feet and knees are. The shoulders may be aching. Are they? Can the word aching be let fly? So there's just what is there, and what is that? Without knowing. Are thoughts saying, she's talking about a state that I don't have, I want it, how can I get it? Just listen to them. And then listen quietly, and there's the traffic. It's there, isn't it? We don't have to do it. It happens, it's there. Maybe shaded or intermingled with 1,000 thoughts. But at one point somebody's saying, listen right now. It's all there. It's like magic. And then thoughts. Are there thoughts, emotions, feeling sort of a narrowing down, a tying up of energy? It's of course an explanation, but it's also palpable out of that space of listening. my anxieties, what to do about them, or the hopelessness of them. All thoughts making this body react in uncomfortable or pleasant ways. And then again a moment of listening to the whole thing. In its fullness and emptiness. Emptiness meaning no one there to complain. Or wish it was otherwise. Or wish it would stay or go away. We will end here for today.